Okay. Okay. So I was discussing about encoders. So encoders have the following structure. So you have so these are unsupervised networks, and they have a structure as shown in this. A simple autoencoder has a shape shown like this. So here, for example, there are, suppose you have an image which is say 8. Okay, suppose this is the MNIST data set. So MNIST data set had what, 28 by 28 pixels, 28 by 28 pixels. So if I make this, if I flatten this array, then this becomes 784. Okay, so suppose the input has 784 inputs, and in autoencoders, the input and the output have similar dimensions or the same dimensions typically. Not essential, but autoencoders, in their most, frequently they have inputs and outputs of the same dimensions, and the images which are, or the data which is fed into the input, the same data is fed into the output. Okay, the same image you take, which is of 8, and you put it at the output as well. So the network is trying to predict the same image which is put in the input. It is trying to form the same image at the output. Okay. um, Now what is the advantage of this? Why do, how is this even useful? Now here what is happening is, suppose the first layer is having 784 inputs, then it is coming to 500, then it is coming to say 100, and then suppose it is 3, then 100, then 500, then 784. Okay. So in this, what is happening is, from every stage to every other stage, these are all fully connected neural networks. So there is a compression of data which is happening, and there is a dimensionality reduction. There are total 784 dimensions in the first layer, but in the middle layer, which is the bottleneck layer, there are only 3 dimensions. And in the output layer, again, there are 784 dimensions. So this portion is called as the encoder portion, and this portion is called the decoder portion. Okay, from bottleneck to this portion. Now encoder basically reduces the data from 784 to a very small number, which is say 3. And then decoder, if you put only 3 numbers in the decoder's input, okay, it gives back the 784 input output. Okay, if you think about what are the applications which this can have great applications in file compression, data transmission. For example, if you have a big data which you have to transmit from one side to the other side, and the data structure, you already have an encoder decoder programmed by a lot of training through that encoder decoder network. Then on the transmission side, you can have the encoder where you put in the data and you get the compressed data here. Okay, and this you transmit through the network. Okay, it may be speech also. For example, if you have on a telephone or a phone, okay, you have a speech signal, you put it here, you get a very compressed speech signal output here, and then transmit it through the network. And then on the decoder side, that is on the receiver side, you just have the decoder. On the decoder, you put in this small 3 byte information here, and you get back the 784 information here. Okay, so this can do very efficient, this can help in very efficient transmissions. For example, the kind of transmission which is occurring on this, say, this Google Meet right now. This can be example where you have a video being transmitted, but you can increase the efficiency by a lot if you can really compress the data dimensionality. So this is a very efficient way of data dimensionality reduction. And this has another application. There are 2 applications to autoencoders. One is data dimensionality reduction, and second is it can be used for transformations. From, for example, it can be used for filtering noise. It can be used for creating segmentation in the images, or learning hidden patterns, learning, a transformation which has already occurred on the data, but you don't know how that transformation has occurred. Okay, so you can suppose you have something like a black box. Sorry. Suppose you have a something like a black box, okay, in which you have input, say x, and then this transformation is h, and then you are getting y. So your y is equal to h of x. You don't know what x is, what h is, okay, and you want to find out what h is. For that, what you can do is you construct h as a autoencoder, okay. You construct h as autoencoder, and then you can feed in new random x values and get corresponding y values for them, and feed in those x here, and put those x here and put those y here, and train this network. You keep training this network over and over again, then you will be able to find a very close approximation to h. And then even if you don't know what this transformation is, you can find out, you can make this transformation. This is something like, if there is, suppose, a coding from, say, some secret coding which is coming up, and you don't know how that code is getting generated. So but you have the box which is generating that code. So you put in random information into that box, you get the what is the code, and then you can make your own box for that code, even though you never knew what is inside that box. Okay, you can recreate that black box by using this. Okay, so these are some of the application of simple autoencoders. So there can be deep autoencoders. In the deep autoencoders, instead of fully connected neural networks, we use what we use convolutional neural networks. Okay, we use convolutional neural networks. So this part of the network should be clear to you already. So this part of the neural network should be clear to you. It has pooling layers and convolutional layers. This has convolutional layers and pooling layers. Okay. On the other side, okay, we go back into a larger size network. So this is something which you have seen, where you have tried to reduce the volume of the data by doing strided convolutions and by max pooling. There is something called as deconvolution, okay, and unpooling. So here you do deconvolution and unpooling, okay, to come back to the space in which the original data was. So you can feed in, for example, a dog's image on this side. You can put the dog's segmented image on this side, or you can even put simply the same dog's image here, okay, and then you can store this information in your file, and this is your compressed file. And then later, when required, you can feed in this compressed file back and get back the dog's image. But this has also applications in segmentation. For example, if you have X-ray or some kind of CT scan, and you want to do a segmentation of that, then you put that X-ray image here, you put the segmented X-ray here, okay, you put the segmented X-ray or some kind of segmented CT scan here. Both should be matching with each other. For example, you took X-ray, you gave it to the doctor, he segmented it, and you put that segmented image here, okay, and then you train this network. Then this network learns, if you put the X-ray image here, it will learn how to segment that, or segment a particular organ. And so this, if it can be trained on a lot of images, it can learn how to segment say a cancerous tissue out of the image. Or for example, in this case, it is this network can say, segment out a dog out of the image. Wherever a dog appears in the image, this will be able to segment it. Now, before going forward, we should know what is deconvolution and what is unpooling. Now, unpooling is reverse of pooling. So pooling, what we used to do is, if we had a network like this, if we had a network, if we had a box or a pixels like this, so max pooling used to take the max of these four and used to just create one pixel out of these four. Now, in the unpooling, we go the reverse way. If we have a single pixel, can we go back to 4 pixels? So there are two well-known methods in this. One is the nearest neighbor method. In the nearest neighbor method, so here if there is one pixel, which is 1, So then you copy it 1 1 1 1, okay, 4 times copy. If there is 2 on this side, then you copy it 4 times here. 3 is copied 4 times, 4 is copied 4 times. So in this way, you are able to move from 2 by 2 to 4 by 4 matrix. There can be another method, which is the bed of nails method. In this, if there is a 1 here, you put 1 at a particular location, then 0 0 0, 2, then put 2 at the first location, 0 0 0, 3, 3 at first location, 0 0 0, and 4, 4 at one location, and then 0 0 0. Okay. So this is the process of unpooling. There can be something called as is there any question till now? Is there any question till now? Okay, continue. So this is your unpooling. Then we have max unpooling. In max unpooling, what we do is, so it is a in this case, for example, in bed of nails, we always place the one, we always place the number at the top left corner. Okay, always place the number at top left corner, but it might not be the most efficient one. So in this, what in max unpooling method, what we try to do is, because there are pooling layers which we have already done in the forward in the first half of the network, there are pooling layers, and the last half of the network there are unpooling layers. So we try to even build symmetry around that. For example, if this is the pooling layer and this is the unpooling layer, so in max, if pooling layer had this kind of arrangement, so this was the pooling layer. So what will be the output for this? This is a 5, because the pooling layer pulled out the maximum from these 4, which is 5. Suppose this was this happened in this layer, then the corresponding unpooling layer in the second half of the network, if we are unpooling, what we'll do is we'll take this one and we'll not put this one here. We'll not put this one here. We'll put it wherever it was in the corresponding first half of the network, which was here. Okay, here you can see. Okay, the same thing would repeat in the second half of the network. So this is called as max unpooling, so that there is a symmetry between the first half and the second half, even in the pooling layers. Okay. Then what do I mean by deconvolution? Deconvolution are, so convolution we knew. So for example, if this was the original network, if this was the this was a set of pixels, a 3 by 3 pixels. So convolution was, we had a filter, which was of 3 by 3 filter. We multiplied each element of these each of these elements with their corresponding points in the filter. Then we did a summation, and that summation went to this pixel. Okay, so that was how the convolution was performed. In deconvolution, we try to do the reverse. So suppose there is a single pixel. Okay, suppose there is a single pixel, and then we put a filter, which is a 3 by 3 filter. Okay, so suppose this pixel was say 5, and this is a -1, -1, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, -1, something like that. So then this was say 5. Okay, so then we pass this single pixel through this filter, and then we get a 3 by 3 filter, 3 by 3 output. Okay, that 3 by 3 output will be 5 multiplied by -5, which is -5, 5 multiplied by 0, which is 0, 5 multiplied by 1, which is 1, 5 multiplied by -1, which is minus 5. Okay, 5 multiplied by 0, which is 0, 5 multiplied by 2, which is 10, 5 multiplied by 3, which is 15, and 5 multiplied by 0, which is 0, 5 multiplied by -1, which is -5. Okay, so a single pixel became 9 pixels. Okay, and we put those 9 pixels here. Okay, we put those 9 pixels here. Now for the next pixel here, suppose we take this pixel. Okay, so this pixel will go from, so there will be overlap. This pixel will move from here till here. Okay, the output of the next pixel, this pixel, will be from here to here. So there is a lot of overlap between these two. If the stride is 1, then these pixels will reconstruct to or will deconvolve something like this. So wherever there is overlap, those overlap gets added. Okay, so wherever there is overlap, sorry, this is a previous presentation. So wherever there is overlap, for example here, whatever is the output from the first pixel and from the second pixel, they get added here. Here also the addition occurs. Here the addition occurs. So this is how you do deconvolution. Okay. So this is about the theory of autoencoders and why convolution and deconvolution, all these are required. I will go to the programming example. Before that, again the same question. Is there any questions? Are there any questions? Because the reason I am doing it online right now rather than just throwing a recording at you is because I thought there might be questions. Okay, so this is the autoencoder dimension. This is the autoencoder example where we'll do two things. So we'll do dimension reduction, as well as we'll do a filtering example, a transformation filtering example. So here I am trying. We'll work with the MNIST data set in this. So the first input is a 784. It will take a shape of 784. The input size is 784 by 1, and then it goes into a dense encoding. Encoding dimension I have put as 2. Encoding dimension equal to 2 means the bottleneck will have only 2 pixels. Okay, here. Understand? Or let's make the bottleneck 4 pixels. It will be a little more clearer if we do like this. Bottleneck equal to 4. That means I can't draw on this. So bottleneck equal to 4 means this is 784. It starts like this. Okay. So in the bottleneck, there will only be four elements or 4 data points, and it will come back and become 784 again. It will come back and become 784 again. Okay. So after that, after the 7, so I have already, so this is the encoding dimensions. This is the encoding dimension. Now I start with the input image, which is 784 by 1. Then I go to 4 into encoding dimension, which is 4 into 4, 16. Okay. So I will go from here to 4 to, I'll go to 16 from here. Okay. From 16, I'll go to 8. Okay, from 8 I'll go to 4. That's, I think that is what is written here. Okay, so this goes to 4 into encoding dimension. After that I apply a leaky ReLU activation function. After that I go to 8 into encoding dimensions, and finally I go to the encoding dimension, and this I term as my encoded values. These are my encoded, this is my encoded layer. After getting the encoded layer, I am going back. I am going back to 2 into encoding dimension, which is what? Encoding dimension is 4. So 2 into encoding dimension is 8. Okay. So I go back from here. I go back to 8 here, and then I'll go back to 16, and then I'll go from there to 784. So this is the architecture of the, so this part is the encoder and this part is the decoder. Okay, so then I am so this one, last one is I am naming as decoder layer. After that I construct the autoencoder. Autoencoder is the full thing. Autoencoder is the is from this point. Autoencoder is from this point to this point. This is the autoencoder. Okay, autoencoder is a combination of an encoder part and a decoder part. So here I'm constructing the autoencoder. So autoencoder will start from the input image and will end at the decoded. Okay. Then in this autoencoder, there are two parts. The first part I am taking as encoder equal to, it starts, this is another model, but this model is actually deriving itself from this model. This is starting at input image and is ending at encoded. Okay. This encoder is going here and then it is going back, going through this network and coming to the decoded. But the autoencoder is from the input image till the decoded. Encoder is from input image till the encoded, till encoded. Okay. And then I do the encoder.summary and autoencoder.summary. So if I run this, so these are all run already, so I did not run them again. Yeah, okay. So you can see it starts with 784, goes to 16, then 16, then 8, then 8, then 4. This is the encoder layer. These are the encoder layers. So encoder layers compress the 784 pixels to just 4. Okay. And this is the autoencoder. It starts with 784, 16, 16, 8, 8, 4. Then from 4 it goes up 8, 8, 6, 8, 16. Yes, 8, 4 to 8. Then 8 to 16 it goes. Then there are so this is not a layer, this is not a separate layer, this is that the just the activation of this layer. Okay, so this is not a separate layer, this is a leaky railway activation of the dense layer. So from 16 it goes to 784. So these are the parameters for that. Now the decoder part I had not constructed because this requires a different kind of coding here. So in decoder what I'm doing is I'm taking the encoder input, which is of the shape of the encoding dimension, which is 4. Encoding dimension we have already taken is 4. So encoded input is 4. After that, a decoder layer will take its, it will derive its layer from the encoder, autoencoder layer itself. It will start from the, now, where is the decoder layer starting in the autoencoder? This is the -1 layer. This is the -2 layer, -3rd layer. So this will start from -1, -2, -3. Yes, so it will take itself from so it will start with -1 layer, which is the output layer, which is the output layer means -1 is which one? -1 is this layer, this decoded layer, -1, -2, -3, -4. It is taking these 4 transitions. So those 4 layers. So this is your -1 layer here. -1, -2, -3, and -4. So we are going until this, and then we are constructing the decoder by first taking the encoder input, then putting into the decoder layer 1, decoder layer 2, then decoder layer 3, then decoder layer 4. So it is passing through these 4 decoder layers, and then it is giving us the decoder. But these layers are actually, it is creating maps from within the same autoencoder. Okay, it is not a separate. So if you train the autoencoder, the encoder and the decoder automatically get trained. Okay, because those are the parts of the autoencoder layer. So you can see the structure of this, because I have changed, I'll have to run it again. So the structure of this is, you see, it starts from 4, then 8, then 16, then 16, then 784. This 16 is actually part of this. This is just activation of this dense layer 4. After that, we compile the autoencoder layer, and then we import the MNIST dataset. We imported the MNIST dataset. We then reshape each of these to 784, because these extrains are 28 by 28. So we'll change them to 784. So np.product extrain.shape, which is 28 multiplied by 28. So this becomes so we have extrain.shape, which is 60,000 images of training, 784 pixels each, and 10,000 images of testing, and 784 pixels each. Are you still connected? Okay. So coming back, so 784 pixels each. Here, after doing this, I train this autoencoder. The difference here you clearly see. The training, in the training side, the target and the inputs both are same. Target is also xtrain, input is also xtrain. Okay, and I am planning to do it for say 50 epochs, and let's run it. It's on a GPU. It should not take too much time. So it will train it, and then you will see that after this, the autoencoder is trained. Let it train. We'll come down and start looking at this. So this block here, I'm taking the encoder part and I'm feeding in XTest images, which are 784 pixel images, the complete XTest into the encoder, and I'm predicting the encoder test images. I'm saving the output of the encoder to this variable. It is like saving the output of the encoder to a file, but here I am saving it to a variable, encoded images underscore test. Similarly, I take this encoded images, which are which are just 4 pixels or 4 data points. So 784 pixel images get compressed into 4 data points, which will come out as encoded images underscore test. These 4 pixels I am putting into decoder part, and I'm getting the decoded test images test. And then same I do for the training images, and I get the encoded images train and decoded images train. Okay. Once so let's wait for this training to complete here. It's raining outside, so sound maybe little. So is there a question now? No questions. So let's wait for this training to complete. Okay, so training is completed. Now let's run this one, which is just prediction using the trained network. And then this one here, I'm just plotting, these images, which are encoded test. I will be plotting decoded test images and X-test images. So some samples from the X-test, which are the given samples. So they should be perfect in their, look and feel. Now we want to see after encoding and then decoding, how the images look. Okay, like that is, we have created images out of just 4 data points, and after that we want to plot that and see how those images look like. So you see, so this is the original image 5 of 5. You see it is not looking great, but you look for other things like 9 looks almost like 9, although this 9 has been created just out of 4 points. Okay, just 4 out of 4 data points. 0 looks perfectly like 0. 6 again, there is little confusion. 9 is okay, 0 is okay, 1 is okay, 5 is okay. Sorry, 5 is not great, but not bad also. 9 is okay. So in this way, you can, so instead of having the bottleneck features just having 4 data points, you can increase it to 8, and you will have much more clearer representations. So if you have to transmit these images over a network, okay, so instead of sending 784 pixels, you can just send 4, 8, 10, and still get a very good representation of the image on the other side if they know how to decode that code. Okay, so, and if you want to know how these actually look like, maybe I have oh, that's why I had done for 2. Actually, training here, if you change your encoder dimensions just to 2 instead of 4, where was that? you will be able to plot it. Okay, you will be able to scatter plot it, but otherwise this encoding dimension has 4 dimensions. 4 dimensions cannot be plotted on the screen. Only 2 dimensions can be plotted. So we can change it to 2 dimensions. And we can change it to 2 dimensions and plot it. So I am not going to run it again. Let it run, but I will. I have already plotted it earlier, so I'll show you how the 2 dimensions look like. So these are the 2 dimensions. Okay, so if you have just 2 dimensions in your encoded part, encoded data, you can plot them along x and y. So along x and y, I have plotted the 2 encoded values for all the numbers, for all the 10,000 training cases. Okay, so you can see how this for 0, all the encoded values are concentrated around a particular zone. 1, the concentration is around another zone, but there are also a lot of overlapping zone. So that means if there is a lot of overlap, that also makes it little unclear, because if you take one point from a zone which is in the overlapping zone, the decoder will not be able to decode it very well. So ideally we want these zones to be as separate as possible. Okay, so that's what so this is for the training encoding, and this is for testing encoding. And you can now also use this autoencoder to generate new images. You can also use this for generating new for example, um, here sorry, let's come here. Suppose there were only 2 numbers here, right? Here, suppose there was if you feed say 0.5, 2.1, there will be a certain image which will be created. Maybe say 6 is created out of this. Okay, if you change it to say 0.7, this part to 0.7, maybe the 6 will start looking something different, like 6 might look like this. Or if you move this 2.1 to say -2, this might become 5. Okay, so what I'm saying is this can also be used as a generator, but this is not a very good generator, because that's why we have variational autoencoders, which I might teach in next lectures to come. But you can think of, like, if I in this cloud I can pick up one point from this point which does not exist in this cloud, but from this blank area if I put one point, what will that point look like? Because this is a cloud of 1, that point, even though it didn't exist in the original image data set, that will create a new one which does not exist in the original data set. So theoretically, if you know this cloud distribution, you can pull one point out of this distribution and feed it to the decoder network, and it will be creating another image. For example, you think about, for example, if you do this for cat dog data set, and you pull one point out of this cloud for the cat dog data set, after training on the autoencoder, and put it in the decoder layer, decoder network, it will create a cat image which did not exist originally in the data set. Okay, because it learns the overall structure of the data. So in the bottleneck, if you put some new value which is very close to the original data distribution, you will be able to create a new image. Okay, but because these clouds, as you can see, are very not very these are not in a Gaussian distribution or not in a very uniform distribution. Typically, these kind of vanilla autoencoders, which are the simpler type of autoencoders, are not very suitable for image generation or data generation. However, you can still generate somewhat if you know this distribution. Ideally, variational autoencoders are the ones which are used for this. Okay, so this is another one which in which I have used. This is a two-dimensional case. Okay, where I have taken 28 by 28. I am not flattening it to 784 by 1. So this will be taking input shapes of 28 by 28. This will be going through a convolutional layers and max pooling layer. Then it will be creating an encoded representation which will just have 7 by 7 by 1 representation. So here here it is summarized. It starts with 28 by 28 by 1 image. Then it converts, it goes from 28 by 28 by 1 using a convolutional layer to 28 by 28 by 16. then 14 by 14 by 16, then 7 by 7 by 8, and then 7 by 7 by 1. This is at your bottleneck. Okay, 7 by 7 by 1. Then it goes from there to 14 by 14 by 1, then 14 by 14 by 8, 28 by 28 by 8, and then 28 by 28 by 1. Okay, so you can see it starts with a 28 by 28 by 1, and it goes to a 28 by 28 by 1. And this is a completely deep deep convolutional neural network configuration for autoencoder. This actually looks like something like this. Okay, so this actually has a structure like this if you visualize this. And then I have created the encoder, and similarly the decoder layer has been created in a, this is a clever arrangement in which we are extracting the decoder layer out of the autoencoder. So this is something which you can, use for any other application, but you have to change this number. If you increase the number of decoder layers, you need to change this number. So there are 4 layers in the decoder part. So this is layer 1 layer. This is the then there is upsampling layer which I have used here. So and convolves, and I have used deconvolution. Deconvolution here is done by this con2d transpose function. Okay, so I'm doing upsampling and deconvolution, upsampling and deconvolution. Okay, and these are, if you start, this is -1 layer, this is -2, -3, -4. So there are 4 deconvolution layers. If you change this, then you have to, if there are more deconvolution layer, you have to change this number, and you have to add more decoder layers like this, and then you have to change this function here. Okay, so then you'll be able to create deeper deconvolution layers, sorry, deeper decoder layers. So once you do this, after that I have derived again I have taken the MNIST dataset, and I trained this MNIST dataset over this, and here you can see, because we are now representing the numbers as which are 28 by 28 as now 7 by 7, because the bottleneck layer has 7 by 7 by 1. Okay, the bottleneck layer here has 7 by 7 by 1. So the encoded dimension is having 49 numbers. Okay, so you are representing 784 pixels with 49 pixels. So of course, as the number of pixels are 49, which were earlier just 4, so the representation will be much clearer. So you can see, this is almost very clearly translated. So this number here on the bottom 7 has been derived out of the 49 numbers which were derived from this original 28 by 28 images. So you can see how clearly this is able to translate. And so this is one image, and this is one. So this is one of the decoder prediction values. So what we expect is 7 by 7. So that means there are 7, or this is an array of 7 by 7 numbers for every number. So this is the 7 rows, and these are 7 rows and 7 columns for 2. And yeah, so this is the compression of data. Now I will give one example here of how we can add some noise to this data, and we'll see how this decoder network is able to now remove that noise. So in this, I am creating a function which is transform image. If I pass any image to this, it will add some salt and pepper noise to it. Salt and pepper noise is, it's like, if you take an image and pour some salt and pepper over it, how it looks like, so that's how the salt and pepper transformation. It will add a noise of salt and pepper noise to the transformed image. So I'm taking the training images. I'm creating 2 arrays, which are transformed image array train and transformed image array test. I'm going through all the training images and adding salt and pepper noise and storing them in this array, which is the transformed image array. Similarly, in the other one, I'm doing same thing for the test array. After that, I trained the network here, trained the autoencoder, which was designed earlier. The same autoencoder which was designed earlier, I'm retraining this. The same autoencoder of 7, which was giving us 7 by 7 by 1 bottleneck features. That I'm training here. But here, the input I'm changing. Input is the salt and pepper image array. Okay, so this is the noisy array which I'm feeding in, and this is the actual image. Okay, so I'm feeding in the noisy image, and I am putting in the actual image as the output. Now, if I'm training this, after training this, you see, I'm plotting some of the examples. So these are the images which are fed to the network. Okay, and these were the images which the network is telling that there is so if now in this network, if I feed a 7 with all the salt and pepper noise, it filters all that salt and pepper noise and gives me this 7, because this was trained with this image in its input and the original image in its output. Okay, this network was trained with this salt and pepper image in its input and the original image in its output. That's why it knows how to go from the salt and pepper noise involved image to the original image. So if I now give it another new image which has a lot of salt and pepper noise added to it, it knows how to convert that image back to the original context by removing all that salt and pepper noise. So this is a very amazing application if you look at, and there are many advanced applications nowadays. For example, if there is a lot of noise in a room and you are recording some sound of a human speech, so this kind of application, this can be used for, say, removing all that noise very easily. If and for example, if there is a image of a person, okay, and in that image, for example, only the eye is available, okay, can we go from this image which has just the eyes to the complete face, from reconstructed from just the eye portion? Or if there is an image which has been damaged, okay, there is an image which has a part of the image has got completely cut off, can we find the image, go back to the original image from that damaged image, or some portion of the data is missing? So there are a lot of applications which can be thought of using this. So this is all I wanted to talk about today for autoencoders. So if there are any questions, I'll be available to take questions, please. So should we close? Is there any questions of earlier CNNs and all also you may ask? Okay, then no questions. Thank you. So we'll meet again afterwards. Okay, bye.